Do you have any thoughts on the idea that video games are responsible, at least in part, for violence or sexism in real life?
Mm. Yeah, kind of we were saying before, like violence is more of it's an easy thing to have conclusions about. So it's hard for it's sort of what we were speaking to earlier when I was talking about violence and sexism and like having good messages about violence is kind of easy. It's kind of hard to fuck that up, but having good messages about sexism is like very difficult to do. And so there is some room for bad ideas to, or ideas that aren't great, I'll say a little more easier to put your name to, um, sort of get absorbed a little more uncritically and potentially be a part of someone's worldview. Although usually never like in isolation, just part of a broader cultural thing. But it is something that gaming equally has the capacity to contribute to as much as any other art form.
The next question is about the activist campaigns, but we've already talked about that a lot. Is there anything else you want to say, or did you support any of those things like the Change the Cover movement, or the more decentralized attempts to convince, you could say, Lionhead Studios or Obsidian Entertainment to change their stuff?
Um, yeah, I didn't really anticipate or follow those too carefully. Most of what I did was like have those little on the ground discussions with people or make videos and video responses and have debates like on your channel and stuff. That was mostly what I was doing at the time.
Where do you think the lines are between criticism and advocacy of censorship?
um, Let me find what I wrote down. What I wrote down. Um, it's definitely a hard question. Um, Definitely, like it can be censorship when it crosses, outside the realms of things like free speech and what can be mapped onto natural sort of marketing forces, like a boycott. We shouldn't really consider censorship, even if actively campaigned for. It's sort of too legitimate a pursuit to sort of like relegate to that bin. Um, like if it goes beyond like principled generalization, anonymity, like criticize a company and their behavior. Don't criticize like and harass like individual people. Like um, when it becomes censorship, is complicated, I suppose. I probably just need to analyze a case by case thing.
Do you have any thoughts on the removal of content from some foreign games when they are localized?
I don't like it, I guess. I probably think it should just all be as it is. Mm.
Oh, hey, there's this movement you should join. They talk about that shit all the time.
Mm.
I'm fucking with you. I'm sorry. I actually, I think that that's something that GamerGate really did that was like actually really successful. I think like the widespread petitions we did, um, and the Operation Torrential Downpour to
Mm.
convince the publishers to stop changing, like taking out like large swaths of the game, like Ace Combat 3 and Fire Emblem Fates and Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Like there was a time when they were taking out like large swaths of content out of these games. Like they even took out like mini games and stuff out of Fire Emblem, and they took out like half the
Mm.
story of Ace Combat 3. Like I feel like
Mm.
that's actually gotten better, and I think like it might have been because of us actually.
Good. Well, I mean, I hope so. I feel the only issue is that I feel like the association with Gamergate sort of weighs that down a bit, just because has such a negative connotation broadly from just the average person. But I mean, if it can be, the success can be made there, then that sounds all right.
People in chat are saying they still do that. They do still do that. That's true, but I feel like it's gotten better than it used to be. Like they'll still change some stuff, but it's not to the extent that it was in the past, I feel. Anyway, do you think that Gamergate supporters who did care about creative freedom were consistent in their application of that principle?
Um, I suppose I couldn't say.
I think some of us, I think a lot of us were, um, and some people were not. Well, I don't think William Usher ever gave a shit about creative freedom to begin with, but like when he tried to do the boner culture thing, like a bunch
Mm,
of us called him out, including myself and Lisa and Lord Nurgle and Kung Fu Man and a bunch of other people were calling him out because we thought like he was trying to censor stuff from the other direction. And I called out the anti-SJW people who were mad about Mass Effect Andromeda, and I
mm,
called out that crazy guy Jack Bosobiec when he traded that fake news about Star Wars Rogue One.
mm,
And he tried to create like a fake boycott of Rogue One because he made up lies about it having an anti-Trump scene in the film.
mm.
I feel like I was consistent, and I feel like some other people were very consistent, but there were people who were hypocrites, or they didn't care about that part of GamerGate maybe.
So it's probably lots of all of everything going around, and it's sort of a it was enough of a thing to find all sorts, I suppose.